Okay, looks like we are live on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are going to be talking with Andrea about her story about how TMJ, which is a disorder with your joints in your jaw, she will go more into that probably, but about how that almost stole her calling as a creative in the arena of using her voice and teaching others how to use their voices. And this is going to be a very hope-filled and exciting thing to talk about, especially for those of you who might suffer in this arena, or you suffer from vocal fatigue, or you even just feel like there is attack on with your joint. That was another thing. I did that the last time. Lots of times I've done that. Anyways, I have to close out my YouTube tab every time I go live because it goes live with on my screen and then it feeds back. Okay, well, anyways, this is Andrea Orem, and she is the founder of Strength Train Your Voice on Facebook. And I have invited her here to share about her background and upbringing in the church, because it has so much to do with her story and leading into what she does now in the area of vocal training for speakers and for singers, anyone who uses their voice. So that's probably you. Anyways, thank you, Andrea, for agreeing to come on here. And I would love to hear you talk now about your background and how you maybe came to know Jesus, what your background in the church is, and then we'll go into the story of your voice and the creative side and what your journey was in that arena.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Rachel. This is a lot of fun. I know we've chatted before, and it's so good to just connect with you and connect with your kind of your vision of sharing how all these things are interconnected and how God is writing our stories and using our unique voices in different ways. So yeah, I
said that.
Oh, thanks. So I grew up a believer. I grew up in a Baptist and then kind of turned into non-denominational church and a believing family. My parents are believers, and I actually also attended a classical Christian school growing up. So I had a very solid foundation in all things scripture and learning truth from scripture, and just being able to study those things from a very early age and love scripture and love the Lord. So I'm really blessed in that way.
So I just want you to explain a little bit more, because some of our viewers might actually, like for me, I grew up in the church, but I am not very good at labels.
Oh, totally.
So I don't really know, like the only thing that I know about the Baptists, it seems, is that they are very strong Bible teachers. So it's strong biblical based, and that's a high value and priority as far as I understand. Is that correct?
Yeah. So and I wouldn't say my church was very strict as far as denominations go, and that's kind of why they eventually shifted from the Baptist denomination to more of a non-denominational stance. And I actually currently attend an evangelical free church. So there's lots of, fancy terms out there, and people are like, I don't even know what all that means. Basically, it's just standing on the foundation of God's word. And at least for me, standing on the foundation of God's word and believing that that's true and that's not errant, not wrong in any way, there's no errors in the word of God. And then also just really focusing on the fact that Jesus and the gospel can be found in all of scripture. And we can see God's story, God's plan of redemption, his gospel, his good news, everywhere in scripture. So that's, I guess, the most important thing for me. I will say that in general, some of the weakness of where I grew up would kind of be in the realm of creativity and worship, really. Not that it was wrong, because it was good in the sense that we had those things, but there wasn't an emphasis or a strength. There wasn't a strength there. Maybe I should word it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it totally seems like maybe just not an arena that they had a lot of training or options to be raised up in that, but it was just something that was like, oh yeah, and we do worship as well because that's good and right.
And we're planted to do that. We were planted to worship, so that was definitely a part of what we did, and part of our services, and part of it was a small emphasis. You know, it wasn't like it was neglected, but at the same time, it wasn't a strength. It wasn't something that was emphasized as really, 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 really important. You know, there were things that were important, and then there were things that were really, really, really important.
Right. Yes, this is all a part of how we get to connect with God. However, the most important would be da 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 da. And I would say that that's just an identification of the varying parts of the body that we need each other for these reasons. You know, we need the strength of the Bible. We need the strength of, honestly, I just look at God as the creator. And so when I think of creatives, and I'm veering towards this direction in even who I'm speaking to, because my heart is that I know that God wants to redeem this arena. He wants to take back, and there's always a counterfeit, but he is the original creator, the mastermind behind all things. And so it's just kind of like, you know, obviously I have a great value of that in my own heart.
I do as well. And even as a young child, I was always singing. I'm not kidding you. There was a rule in my house growing up that we couldn't sing at the dinner table because we would be singing so much that like the food would get cold, and then it was hard to have conversations, and they were like, okay, new rule, you're not singing at the dinner table. You can sing after dinner, you know, or whatever.
What? I love that you're bringing that up, because I've actually struggled as a creative mom going, you know, I want to promote and I want to give space for creativity. And yet at the same time, it can drive me nuts because, you know, it becomes like my whole house is like a painting room, and, you know, papers all over the floor and everywhere. There's just left. And also that my girls, and I don't know if there's any kid that doesn't sing. And that should say something about the way we were created. But my girls, you know, the way that I am is I sing about life in general. I'm just like, oh, I'm just walking down the street and I'm going to pick this flower, you know, and I just sing about life. And so my girls kind of do that as well. They'll be walking around outside, and yet it's bedtime, right? And you're like, okay, I don't want to shut you down because you're singing about Jesus. And they're like, but Mom, it's the Bible. Can we read more stories of the Bible? And I'm going, we have all day to read the Bible, you know, and it's like this struggle, this tension where you're like, yes, that's good. But God also says to honor one another. And there's a time, you know, and it's like, you can't wake up in the morning and sing at the top of your lungs and wake the whole house up. So anyways,
balance.
I just love that you brought that up. But let's get into the area of how I do want to talk about when you found out, or when you were, I don't know, were you diagnosed with TMJ? How did you discover that you were, what were the symptoms? Just lead us into that whole journey.
Sure. Well, so I didn't really have any issues vocally or with my jaw until early college. So I had just gone off to college. I had a lot of stressful, some of it was healthy stress and some of it was unhealthy stress, stressful experiences my first semester. And I think a lot of that kind of led into tension, clenching, especially at night. I am a very light sleeper. So the whole transition to sleeping in a whole new place with roommates that are new and all those things was really hard on my sleep. So it also translated to nighttime clenching and then daytime clenching too, for various reasons. Stress, you know, different stressors would cause me to clench. And then that also would lead into other jaw issues. So clicking and popping and cracking and pain. So it kind of turned into this, well, I'm okay-ish. I'm a little sore when I wake up, and then I'm okay-ish until I sing for approximately 20 to 30 minutes, and then I'm in pain the rest of the day. And so it put a real damper on my spirit, because I was the kind of person that would walk around singing all the day, right? And so when you have to be monitoring how much time you're singing, because I was a vocal major, I'm a music teacher, so I was a music education and music composition major in college. And so I took voice lessons, and I was supposed to practice about an hour a day. And then I was also supposed to do choir rehearsals 4 times a week. And those were an hour, hour and a half, something like that. And so that's 2.5 hours of singing minimum, plus just walking around. And I was that kind of person. So it was very much of a, well, I have to stop singing all the time except for my minimum. And that was, rehearsing and then more rehearsing. And by the end of the day, I had such a bad headache, I couldn't even think straight and do homework and all those things. And so it was just this spiral of like, I want to do what I love. I'm made to do this. I know I'm supposed to be here. I'm not just a singer, I'm a teacher at heart. Like I like singing, but I'm not a super performer, which I led some worship in high school, and I haven't done so much of that recently, because for me, and it's not that I see that as performing, because it's not, but for me personally, I find such joy sharing that in a teaching space. So teaching performers and guiding worship leaders and different people that do those things. But for me, I see it that like that's my heart's passion, and my heart's desire is to help that light bulb go off and help them experience health, and to help them experience lack of vocal fatigue, and all these things, and feel like they love how they sound and sound the way they they want to in different contexts. So for me, it was like, okay, I love doing this, and I have this problem over here that's preventing me, like almost like a thorn in the flesh is what it felt like. Like, how can I do this?
Right.
I literally don't know what to do right now, because I am experiencing this. So as I was experiencing this more, it became more common. So at first it wasn't every day. It was a few times a week. And then it turned into more and more and more. And then that started to become a stressor. So it kind of fed into itself, because I was worrying, okay, am I going to be able to sing all day today? Am I going to be able to sing for my choir rehearsal? Am I going to be able to sing for my lessons? Am I going to be able to sing for my practice time? Is my voice teacher going to be frustrated at me because I didn't sing enough this week on my practicing because I couldn't, so it started to feed into itself. And I went to the orthodontist, actually. No, I started by going to a oral surgeon, because we wanted to look into my wisdom teeth, because I hadn't had my wisdom teeth out yet. My teeth are kind of late bloomers as far as, teeth coming in and different things. So we looked into that, and they told me at the time that my wisdom teeth did not have anything to do with it. My joint looked fine, but they were like, well, you're having joint issues, we think, but it seems to look fine, and we don't really know. And they gave me this list of like do's and do nots. So don't drink.
No real answers then.
Right. Don't drink coffee, because don't do the caffeine, don't chew gum, don't sing. And I was like, well, I can do all of the other things on the list. And I kind of already was, because I don't really chew gum anyway. And, don't chew hard foods and all those things. And I'm like, I kind of already am doing all these except for the singing one. And that one's kind of impossible. So I kind of was left in this place of like, I don't know what to do. Like, they kind of didn't give me any good information. They gave me minimal information.
Right.
But it wasn't super helpful. And so then I went on kind of this big search of like, okay, well, they weren't super helpful. So then actually I did go to my orthodontist and had him make me a night splint to help me not clench or grind at night, which is funny because it doesn't actually stop you from clenching and grinding. It really just protects the teeth, at least the kind, there's lots of different kinds out there. And it kind of prevents a little bit, but not really, because you can still clench and grind. It just doesn't impact you quite the same way. So I still wanted to address that underlying issue, because I still would wake up slightly sore. And so I was like, well, I know I'm still doing it, but it's just not bothering my jaw quite as much, and it's not hurting my teeth, which is good. You want to protect your teeth because it's the only ones you have.
Right. Do what you have to do that you can do to help whatever you can help.
Right, exactly.
Basically.
Yes. So it kind of became this, this struggle of like, there has to be more out there. There has to be other reasons why this is a problem. Like, they told me that maybe my joint's fine, or maybe it's in the early stages of some sort of issue, but not super much that they can tell enough. But I'm having this big problem. So
right. I just want to interject here because I feel like this is a common thing, whether it's about something like TMJ or it's some other issue. And especially I want to talk to moms, but every woman, and especially women, because I do feel like there's a lot that goes on that we're aware of, and we're saying, hey, we need help. And the people that are supposed to help us don't really look into it very far. They see what they see, and then it's like, I don't have any answers for you. And then they send you off. And I've just time and time again talked to people, women especially, about this issue where there's something off in their body, and it's like, they are like, okay, the doctor says everything's fine, but it's eating away at them. Like, something is not right. I'm not able to sleep. I'm not able to eat. This is causing me trouble or pain, and there are no answers for them in the medical field.
Yes.
And so I just want to encourage whoever's watching this that keep pressing in, especially if you're a believer. Ask the Lord for direction in your body and in your healing, and follow the things he gives you. A lot of times he will send you to he'll bring a specific person that can actually help you because they know something about it. Or he will give you direction on things like supplements. I mean, it's very interesting, but we ignore those little nudges a lot of times because we think that's so crazy.
Those prompts. I mean, he does give us, and he gives us experiences prior often that we kind of either forget about or we brush aside.
Because you don't recognize us.
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
Yes.
So
there are so many instances, at least in my experience as I went, that we're like, oh, I could have seen that so much sooner.
Right. I want to talk about that too. Yeah. I want you to talk about whatever comes to you. But I mean, talk about the emotional ups and downs of that, because again, I think people need to know that they're not the only person that feels dark in these moments, feels hopeless. The emotions are real, and we need to acknowledge them and work through them rather than feel like it's not okay to have them. It's like, for you, it sounds like that when you started to have this trouble, you started to have fear that came in that then recreated the thought and the process that you were going to lose something dear and precious to you. Which is what happens, I mean, in all these situations, whether it's for your voice or whether it's for losing a loved one because you have discovered or been diagnosed with something crazy and you're just like, I don't know what to do. So maybe talk about that also, because you mentioned thorn in the flesh. It felt like that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that, because a lot of people that are believers go to that thought process thinking God wants them to have this issue because it's teaching them a lesson, like Paul had the thorn in the flesh, and that was actually given to him by the Lord. I want to dare to say that that's actually rare, and that you need to ask the Lord if he's doing that, and otherwise you won't know. Right. But don't assume that he's giving you some sort of discomfort, pain, or suffering to keep you in line, to keep you aware of his goodness in your life, because a lot of times he's actually not. That's not his plan or his will. It's just the nature of fallen man and the progression of the flesh, so to speak. So we were talking about
I love that you said that. Because I love that you said that, because it was a thought for me. You know, it was a this very thing that I love to do, I now can't do the way I want to do it. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, and so it was a wrestling that I went through, and just had to come to a place of trusting in what I knew to be true, not necessarily my emotions lining up with my mind and my beliefs. And that's hard, because emotions are so fleeting that I think, especially we as women, can sometimes lean too heavily on them. And I'm a very emotive type person. So, and I know a lot of people are,
but creatives are.
Yes.
This is the work of the creative part for me, is like, hey, your emotions are good, actually, and you should lean into them. But your leaning into them is to identify something as a signpost of something going on in your mind or your heart that may need God's truth spoken into it.
Exactly. That's exactly what was happening with this too, because I had all these what if questions, like, why is this happening? And what if because they also said, well, we don't really know exactly what this is, if this is an actual joint issue or not. We know you're having issues. We don't know what's causing it, so we don't know how to fix it. We don't know. I mean, and after a while, they even mentioned surgery, and I was like, big breaks, because I'm a very hands-off person when it comes to things like that. Yeah. So like, no. I'm not going down that road yet. I'm going to do pretty much anything possible before that. So that's just how I am. So it was a lot of these questions and these emotions of like, what if I have to stop singing? Like, am I going to be in chronic pain if I'm singing potentially for the rest of my life? I mean, there's no way to know, right? So it was a lot of these questions of, do I keep singing? Do I try and switch majors and do some? I mean, yeah, I'm a singing type person, but like, do I just switch to something else with my career daytime stuff so that I can not live in this pain all the time? And it was really hard. I had a moment where I was sitting in my boyfriend's van, which he's now my husband. And it was raining. Yeah, right. It was raining, and I just like looking outside. It was like a cold fall day. It was my sophomore year, so about a year later. And I thought to myself, can I do this? Like, not only can I do this for the next 3 years, can I do this for however long it lasts? Like, do I keep going, or do I kind of like quit? And I just had this deep sense, and I know it was the Lord, but you have to just recognize those things, those senses, and not, some people call it intuition, but, or other things, but I had this deep sense that I'm made to sing. And not only am I made to sing, I'm made to lead others in, teaching, because that's my heart. And that it would be okay, whatever happened, that whatever happened would happen. I had no knowing that it would go away or not. I had no, picture of the future of like, oh, you're going to figure this part out and then it's going to be fixed, or, something like that. I had nothing to hold on to. But what I realized is that fear and faith are two sides of the same coin. They both have to do with the unknown future. You can either live in fear of the unknown future. That's a very negative response to looking at the unknown. Or you can live in faith and look at the unknown in a very positive way. So we can choose to, and it's all about your focus. It's all about what you choose to look at. Are you choosing to look at the what ifs of the scary part? Or are you choosing to look at the what ifs of what God could do, or who he is in the moment, whether that hard circumstance changes or not? And that's what I chose to do. I chose to look at it. I don't know what the future holds, but I know who holds me as I walk into the future. And
that's so good. Signpost right there. I know who holds me. You know who you belong to. I want to point out that that when stuff comes up in our lives, it creates a valley of decision. And I think that's important to understand, because I talk to my girls this way too. I go, before this happened, we didn't have a choice about it. It didn't exist in our minds, right? Before something came into your presence or somebody mentioned an option to you, basically, before you had trouble in your jaw, there was no decision needing to be made. You were already on this path. So it's kind of like a stop in the road almost, where you have directions you could go, and it is really your choice. However, I love how you also then said that as you thought about how you had a choice, that you were open to whichever decision you needed to make. And in that openness to the Lord, you heard his breathing on who he made you to be. And this is important because the lies come against you to say that there's no possible way you could do it with this problem that you're now faced with. And you had to choose based on the cost of your choice. You weren't given freedom first. You were given the choice and the cost, and you were like, you know what, at all costs, no matter what, I'm going to do this anyways. And if I run into where I can't do it any longer, then I'll deal with that. But until then, until you completely take me out, I'm moving forward in this. I just love that. I mean, that's how I see what you're saying, at least. You can correct me if I said something that didn't make sense, but let's keep going down that road.
Sure. Yeah. So at that point, I made that decision. I said, I'm going to keep doing this, and I don't know what's happening next, but I kind of started looking at other options as far as guidance in this area to figure out what was going on. And I started to really dig on my own, because that's really all I had was my own ability to research, because the people that were supposed to be specialists didn't seem to have answers for me, which was very frustrating. But I realized I know a lot more than I think I know. I grew up actually on an 8-acre organic vegetable farm. And so I know, I know a lot about plants, not only like how to grow them and take care of them, but then also what they do. And so I grew up with this very, I guess, rich view of what food does and how it matters to your body, and how food can positively and very negatively affect us in a lot of ways, and how God gave us this rich, beautiful, like colorful way of fueling our body and sustaining us. Like he could have just made everything boring.
The rainbow.
Yeah, he could have made everything so boring. Like he didn't have to make it taste amazing. He didn't have to give it all the colors that it has. Right. He didn't have to make 10 different kinds of, tomato. Well, lots more than that. But, he didn't have to make 10 different kinds of mint and like all these different things. And it's just like, this is beautiful. And it has purpose. It's not just there because it's fun, although that is cool. It has meaning for us, for our bodies. So I started to dig into more of that, not just food, but also what other things am I doing or not doing that are impacting the way that my body is experiencing life, So I started to learn a lot more about stress and its impact. I started to learn a lot more about emotions and their impact on the body. So a lot of how the body is so interconnected, really. And so I started to lean on that my background, my growing up knowledge on that. And that was a prompting from the Lord too, because he didn't put me in a family where I grew up on an 8-acre organic vegetable farm for zero reason. Obviously there's tons of reason, but I started to look at it through the lens of he's given me all these tools that I grew up with. And I had put them aside for at least a few months, kind of forgetting about that. And I'm like, wait, I know so much about this. Why am I not utilizing the tools he's already given me? So I started digging into that more, and seeing a little bit of progress, and it was very slow. And so a couple years, go by, and I was in and I was doing a little better than before. I mean, I still had issues with pain most days, but it was better than it was before. It wasn't completely debilitating the way it was before. And then I decided to go get another, like a re-opinion on the whole wisdom teeth thing, just to see where I was at, because I was entering my junior year. I had 2 recitals. I had my voice recital and my composition recital. And I really wanted to figure out, do I try and get my wisdom teeth out, if that's a good idea, before recitals, after recitals, all those things, because of the healing time. And I knew that the surgery itself would be really hard on me, because the pain would be worse jaw-wise than maybe your average person. But we didn't know if that would actually make it a little better afterwards, or if it'd be the same. And it ended up
no guarantees.
No guarantees. Yeah. So the healing process was a little worse which wasn't a surprise, but actually afterwards I started to see even more improvements. So it would have been better probably if I had gotten them out earlier. We just didn't know what we didn't know. So,
right.
So then after that, I found even a few more tools that were useful for helping support my joints themselves, so that, God's given us tools that fuel our bodies, and we know what helps joints and what doesn't.
Overall joint health is what you aimed at, not just your jaw.
Yes. And actually I have super flat feet, which I inherited from my lovely mother. and so right. But that can actually impact your ankles, and then your knees, and then the rest of your body too.
This goes right up the line.
It does. And as I addressed joints as a whole, I started seeing some improvements with some of my knees and my ankles and stuff too, which I didn't really have issues with that were notable. But I was like,
this is so funny though. But what happens is that you don't realize that you're actually uncomfortable if you've lived with it your whole life. And that's another big, hey, maybe you didn't notice, but you actually did have discomfort in those areas, but it was so minute in your mind that you didn't even take note of it, or you just thought it was normal, because it's something you deal with.
There's so many people that walk around with, this is normal, ideas, whether it's something we like, a family pattern that we grew up with, or whether it's something we experience in our bodies.
Hit all the connections. I love making the connections across things that people wouldn't connect, which is this stuff, it's there's so much interesting thought process when it comes to the fact that somebody who grew up in an alcoholic abusive house, for instance, they are in that environment. They don't know, because you're not talking with everyone all of the time about what's going on in your home. Nobody's really saying stuff. So you, as a kid, you just think that's normal until you realize when someday somebody says that they don't live that, they have this, or you witness someone else's family environment and their interactions, and you think, what's going on at my house, or whatever.
I have a funny example of that, actually. My first year of college, it was a weekend, and I was decided to get some salmon and make salmon for breakfast, because we would do that.
That's so abnormal.
In my family, we would do that. And my roommate walks in, and she's like, what are you making? And I was like, fish for breakfast, why not? And she goes, I really don't like how that smells. Do you have to do that more often than this? And I said, no, I suppose not. I said, you've never had salmon or trout for breakfast? She goes, no. I was like, oh, okay.
You just got thrown into the deep end. I love it. So let's talk about time frame. So when you started having the trouble was when you first came into college, and by your junior year, you had your wisdom teeth extracted. Is that what you did?
Yes.
And then
so I got those extracted, I think the spring of my junior year, and then going into my senior year, my recitals, that made my recital stuff, all the crazies that happened during my senior year, a little bit easier. I still had issues, and I still was dealing with some jaw pain, and it wasn't quite as chronic, so it wasn't quite as frequent, all the way up through my first year of teaching.
That's intense, because you had 3 years of not doing anything really differently, right? Where your pain was still so intense.
I was trying things. I even, at one point, I was using these teeny weeny little magnets and taping them on my jaw because I was looking into different options. I was like, I'm trying.
Would you do that in public or while you were at home, like icing? It's almost like icing your jaw, but with
No,
magnets.
actually. So
this is just a trail because that's so fascinating.
I know. And I felt like such a weirdo. I was like, I feel like a robot right now. But I did it like all day.
Wow, this just
in the
speaks
morning.
to the desperation of chronic pain.
It does.
Like, I want to cry right now thinking about how many people in society these days have chronic pain. And, again, you walk around and nobody knows that somebody is suffering because they grin and bear it in silence. And something like that's like maybe everyone notices, but nobody asks because it's awkward, or whatever. And you feel like everyone's looking at you, but you're just in so much pain, you're willing to do anything. I mean, this is just where I want to speak to, speak to that person and say, number one, sorry that nobody's noticing that you are suffering to such a great depth in your physical frame. And also number two, that we've also talked about how this is actually partly, it either creates deep inner pain and deep inner pain over the questions of why, and the questions of, is there ever going to be any change that happens because nobody knows what's going on, and just all of that stuff. I mean, reach out to Andrea or myself if you are feeling alone in that place, and we would love to interact and chat with you about your, where you're at with that stuff, and just
Yes.
hopefully be a good listening ear and also someone to encourage you. I hope that's okay that I just offered that.
Totally. Well, and if you know someone, or are you yourself are dealing with jaw issues in particular,
Yes.
I'm a great resource.
Yes.
I don't want the years that took me to figure this out to be in vain,
Yeah.
And I realized after
Andrea can help you shorten that time through her own process already.
That's my goal. Yeah, that's my goal in sharing some of the things. And I share in that group that you mentioned before, the Strength to Train Your Voice group. I have TMJ Tuesdays. So
Yes.
we talk about some of these different things.
So I'll link that in this video. I got to go back through and link a bunch of things in all my YouTube videos, because I'm like, well, I haven't done that part, but we need to be able to get people to the place that they can get to get the help they need. So
right. And I see so many people struggling, most in silence. And those that aren't doing it in silence, it's a lot of just venting with no
hope.
No hope and no movement towards progress. And
because they don't have anything.
No, and that's so hard for those who are new to that. I've talked to so many people who will join like a support group of sorts for the issue that they're experiencing, and they just get so overwhelmed by all of it in that group, and then they leave. But then they sit and they suffer in silence again because they're just so overwhelmed with the idea that it's an overwhelming,
because it's mostly focused on that there is no answers,
right?
And it's not hope filled that you can keep pressing in and possibly there's a possibility that you could find relief in your body or from your suffering at some point. Like there's obviously no promises being made here. However,
for me either.
Yeah. However, I do feel like a lot of times we pull the carpet out from under people prematurely, and it's not because we're doing it on purpose or maliciously. It's because we haven't found an answer ourselves. Like a lot of the people that are doing that, they haven't found the answer, and that's why they're just talking about their suffering, and it feels hopeless because that's where they're at, you know.
Right.
We
And
need to keep searching.
And I was so tempted myself when I was in that space, I was tempted by that too. But then I ultimately realized that wasn't healthy for my mind.
And you didn't want to stay there.
I didn't. And so I guess another thing to encourage those of you who are dealing with that, if you are, it really matters who you surround yourself with. And that was something that was so helpful during my season of struggle. I had some of the best friends that I might ever have in life. I don't know. I'm hopeful for just as close of friends now and in the future. But I had some of the best friends during college, during that season that I didn't even know friendship like that before that. And it was beautiful. Like, not only did they continually remind me of what I already knew was true and already believed, they'd say, Andrea, you don't believe that. Like I would say something out of pain, from a place of pain.
Yes.
Like it wasn't necessarily a complaining statement. It was more of a, like I'm struggling so much right now just because I don't know if I can keep going. That it was a desperate, statement.
Yes.
And they'd say, Andrea, you don't believe that. And I'd say, you're right. I don't believe that, and they were willing to go there and to kind of gently push with me on that and say, I know you're hurting right now, but you don't believe that. And
Right.
I'd say, no, I'd kind of not snap out of it, but kind of realize like, no, you're right. I don't believe that. And I don't want to say things like that I don't believe. And so it was
to align with what you truly believe.
Yes.
Not speak only out of your pain.
And it was huge to have friends like that who were willing to go there, were willing to say, I know you're hurting right now. And part of it was that some of them had their own chronic pain issues. Actually, it was kind of a unique situation where a few of them had their own issues. So they'd be like, I'm not struggling right now, but you are. And it would kind of go back and forth between us. Like, and we were able to encourage and spur each other on in those moments of, okay, you're wanting to say that right now. You can't say that. You told me that yesterday, or whatever. And it was really, really
it's really reminding you of who you are.
Yes.
And what you truly desire and your design. And I look at this stuff like even what we're doing with chatting about stories and the troubles that we've been through, and how we've arrived at some answers that are helping us to move forward and not be held back and held down. Is I'm reaching towards God and I'm reaching back. And I know that our friend Martha says this a lot, reach back into the fire. But my vision is that I'm not reaching for a person in front of me that's ahead of me. I'm reaching for God, who is the author and the finisher of our faith. And I'm reaching back. And the only way to do that process is to allow God to remove that which hinders you from moving forward. And he surrounds us, like you said, you also have a choice in this. He surrounds us with the people that are going to help us to hold our arms up in the battle that we're in. And it really is a battle. Like, I mean, the reason I keep bringing this up is because on this side of it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just talking. It's like, feels so, easy when it's just talked about on the other side,
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, you're in the depths of the battle right now. You need that person or those people that are going to lift your arms up so that you keep going forward in winning the battle that you're in, and you don't just lie down and die in that place, and give up. And so we're just saying that Andrea's actually in that place where she, in her group, she can and does lift you up and help you to keep going forward through this place of darkness, when you need that. Obviously, you have to want to move forward.
You do.
So if you're not ready to move forward, it might not be the right place for you. But if your heart says, I'm willing and I want that, then that's when people can actually help you.
And it doesn't mean that we don't have moments where we question that. And like I said, I had moments of that. I had moments where I would, out of that desperate place, I would say something that my friends even knew. You don't actually believe that. That's not actually you speaking. Right. That's your pain speaking. Don't let that, not that you can't let it come out, because it's not healthy to stuff things down and pretend it doesn't exist, but saying, this is what I'm tempted to say right now, and this is what I'm tempted
I look at it as an observational side. Step back and observe it. And so be willing to see that that's where you're at and acknowledge that you're there. And you can even say, you know what, right now my heart is in this desperate place where I feel like this, but I know, and then you just, again, speak out. I know that the truth is this over here. And because honestly, you can't move through anything that you don't acknowledge. You can't actually overcome anything that you don't believe exists. So, for me, I find that I am constantly going through a cycle of acknowledging that I have something that needs to be attended to and taken care of and dealt with. And a lot of times it's just in prayer before me and God. And when you acknowledge that you have that problem or you have that issue or your heart is in that place, then you can actually be helped. But if you can't acknowledge that yet, that's probably the first stage. We're gonna come to the place where it's like, I'm not denying that anymore, and I'm not afraid of it. I'm not fearful to say that exists there, because I find that in believers as well. Yes. Even in my interview last night or yesterday, we talked about this very thing, about how it's difficult for believers to acknowledge that they're having tumultuous emotions about something, or even questions of why it's happening, because that indicates that maybe they're not filled with faith. And it's like, you know what? This is how God works faith into us, through the process of our admittance that we don't have it.
And not only that, but like I said before about choosing faith or fear, you can't choose faith versus fear if you don't see the fear.
Right.
If you don't see the choice between choosing faith or choosing fear, if you don't have that, battle or that question inside you, then it's almost like, well, was I even choosing faith?
Right. Yeah, there's a non-choice then, because there isn't one. But I want to go into now now that we've discussed how the ups and downs of discovering that you have a chronic condition that is creating a possible stop to all your dreams and your desires that you feel designed for. And the title of this is that TMJ almost stole your calling. And I want to go into what is your calling, and where are you at now with your jaw issues. And I know you have a course that people can get on helping with those issues and what you did to overcome that. But where are you with pain in that area? Like, is it completely gone? And then you talked about flat-footedness too, and the connection of your whole body, which I think I want to touch on that a little bit again. I mean, people can rewind and replay. Mm-hmm. So sure. Let's move forward, but just kind of touch on those areas of forward progress in your story.
Right.
And I want to get to who you are today and what you're doing and how amazing that is.
Sure. So I did a lot of, like I said, exploring and experimenting and trying to figure out, okay, is this natural thing or this thing? And what I did is I focused on things that weren't going to significantly impact me negatively. or I could just stop doing them and it wouldn't matter one way or another if I was doing them or not doing them, in the sense that there wasn't like a side effect. So I tried a lot of things. Like I said, I tried those little magnets. I mean, I had all sorts of different topical like things I would try putting on my jaw, or internal like supplement type things that would support the joints. And what I did learn a lot. I learned that it's a slow progress. Really, it takes a minimum of 3 months of doing something consistently to really see any sort of progress and whether that specific thing is going to help. So it can take time. And it took me longer than I think it should have. If I would have had a little guidance, it would have taken a lot less time. But
a lot of times ramping protocols too for stuff like that when you're in a severe place.
Yes. So, I mean, and in the process, I learned about all these different things that can impact your jaw that I never knew. Like, I didn't know that hormone imbalances can have effect on joints and can cause joint pain. Like, I didn't know that until I started doing more digging. So then once I was able to help my hormones balance better, that aspect, that factor was taken out of the equation. So I was experiencing a little less pain, not gone, but a little less. And so for me, it was kind of this layering effect. Oh, I addressed this issue. Now I have a little less. Oh, I addressed this issue. Now I have a little less. Oh, I addressed this issue. Now I have a little less. I made sure, I mean, one of the big things for me was spinal alignment, being in alignment. I go to a very special kind of chiropractor that only addresses the top of my neck. They don't touch me anywhere else unless I, have something that's popped out of place, like a rib, but that doesn't happen. So there was all these little layers. And as I started to add these layers and my body was able to experience equilibrium, balance, and be supported in the ways it needed, that pain would start to go away. And so
fascinating.
It is. And so the course that you mentioned, I outlined the 7 different factors that I addressed, and a couple other considerations of things that, like special considerations that could be taken into account that might be affecting other people that weren't specifically affecting me, but I learned about in the process. And so that's to kind of give people a place to start. So it would hopefully take a lot less time if you knew some of those things going forward. So that course is called TMJ Strong. Maybe we can link it on like my website or something so people can find it easy without digging around. But yeah, so that's where I'm at now, I hardly ever have pain. I used to even have pain when the weather would change. Like we'd get weather pressure changes, barometric pressure stuff. I would be super achy. Then I'm like, dang, I feel like I'm an old person, But and now I don't even
clearly you're not.
No. And I don't even have that issue anymore. It's really been, maybe once a month or less I have issues, maybe. And usually that's related to if I like hit my head on something and now my spine is out of alignment again.
Right.
And that's like, okay, now I just go to my chiropractor, get my spine back in alignment and I'm fine. It's like usually related to a specific reason, not just random that I don't know how to address it.
Right.
So that, it's been a huge difference. I'm thriving and I know that, and I'm still supporting my body. So I'm still doing some of the supplements I did before, a lot of them, a lot less than I needed then, just to support my body what it needs. And if I stop those completely, I do recognize slight discomfort. So I know that there's still kind of this underlying, you kind of have issues still, but I don't have issues because I'm supporting my body the way it needs.
Right. But the pain there is gone because of the support you're giving. Yes. And again, this is important because the truth is that there is a lot of work to be done. And I know that maybe be an unpopular, not opinion, but desire of the people that are, already suffering so much. It's like, oh, I can't even, it feels like a weight to bear to have to like go through the process. But I just want to encourage people that you can, and the support is there that you need. And I will link all this stuff into this video below. So,
well, and not only that, like I like what you said about the support being there. And when you're in a place of such pain like that, you just want a quick fix. Yes. I just wanted something that was easy, that was going to take the pain away the next day and be done with it. But like, that's just not how it works, unfortunately. I know it's kind of an unpopular, reality, but that's not really how our bodies were designed. And that's kind of not how it goes usually. I mean, once in a while you see people with that experience, but for the most part, that's not how it is. And a lot of people say to me, like, aren't you frustrated that you have to continue to support your body now, like 5-6 years later? And I'm like, actually, no. Like, I am
glad there is a way
that
I'm you
willing
can
to
get out of pain.
Yeah, I'm just willing to do just about anything that is, a fairly easy. I mean, to me, it's really easy. One of my solutions is I have this specific joint supporting supplement that I take, and it's a little powder. I mix it in my water and I drink it every morning. Super easy. I get my water in, I'm hydrated, like it's not hard. It's just a new routine I had to build.
It's really just changing your mindset about it.
Yes. So that's been really big, and I talk to people about that sometimes where, you could look at it as a pain that I have to do that every day. Annoying. Like, you could look at that as annoying, or you could look at that as, no, I'm just taking care of my body. And ultimately that's what we all need to do if we have specific weaknesses in our body.
Right. And these days it's just not possible to not supplement and be completely without need.
So that's because
it's most people have to do supplementation because our
food is depleted, really, of the vital vitamins, nutrients, and
plus if you're already on a like, say for me, for instance, I used to eat fast food every day when I was growing up and when I was working and living in California, a young person. And so the damage done to my body through that course of time does not reverse over one supplement, one healthy meal that you decide to eat. It's like you actually, like, why I mentioned the ramping protocol is because your body is in such a severe depletion, severe state. Yes, you have a very high or steep upward climb to get back to a place that then you can maintain. So I love how you said that you are still taking some of the supplements, not to the degree that you had to at the beginning, because your body needed to get that infusion initially in order to move forward and maintain now. And so,
So as far as job goes, I'm thriving, and I'm doing what I love. I get to teach musicians, little young people and old people alike, beginners, a lot of them, but even some more advanced students too. And I teach choirs for homeschool groups, and so I teach voice, ukulele, and piano, mostly music wise. But I really just love working with the voice students, whether they're speakers or singers, and really tackling some of those things that they want to work on. Because a lot of people come to me saying, I can't sing, or they come to me saying, I don't like how I sound when I listen to myself on a video. And those are the two biggest things I address with people for, those are their goals. They want to be able to feel like they can sing, and they want to feel like they actually enjoy listening to themselves, and not like it has to be their favorite to listen to themselves, but they don't dislike listening to themselves. So
you teach them skills that then give them confidence and
health. Yeah. I have a lot of people that I work with who experience vocal fatigue too, whether like if they're a teacher and they're talking all day, or they're a coach and they're doing a lot of, one-on-ones. And so then at the end of the day, their voice is tired and they want to be able to go, or at the end of the week, their voice is tired and they want to be able to go to church and actually sing or actually play with their kids.
I think you should do a course on vocal athleticism.
I'm working on a strength train your voice course at the moment, actually.
Yeah. So like I know that we talked about that in our group, strength training your voice. I just see it so clearly as an athletic thing. And she can talk more about the anatomy and stuff about that stuff when you visit her group, but I'm just saying, like, you have muscles and all your body works together, and I love that you love the vocal side of things and working with voice, because it's the only instrument of its kind. Like you are
the only one who has your voice. And
Yeah.
you cannot just set it down like you can a guitar. You can't just walk away from it like you can a piano. It's with
You can't buy a new one. I mean, it's maybe they have vocal cords replacement surgeries or whatever. I don't know, but
they definitely do surgery, but I don't know about replacements yet.
Right. So. Yeah. You have to take care of what you have. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, well, do you have anything else that you want to share on here about your journey or about what you're currently doing or anything?
I don't know. I want to encourage people who are feeling like maybe they're not letting themselves be fully seen or fully expressed to think about that. I don't know, just go to God with it, but also sit with yourself and see, who do I want to be? Who do I see myself as? Do I see myself as creative? You don't have to feel creative to be creative.
Right.
And I think if more people tapped into that, we would feel more whole as human beings. So I guess that's what I'll leave you with.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Andrea. You guys, I will link Andrea's group and her course in the description after this end ends. Thank you to everyone for coming and watching this, both present now and in the future. If you want to see more of these kinds of videos and you're enjoying the hope-filled stories that we're having here, just hit subscribe and click the bell to get notified of any future videos. Okay, Andrea, thanks for taking time to share with us, and I will see you on the internet.